Welcome back to another Senior Learning Institute's educational moment, where older adults and their loved ones turn for honest and straightforward information. In just a few minutes, you'll enjoy bite-sized, easily digestible nuggets of knowledge, empowering you to make the right decision the first time. So without further ado, here's our founder, certified senior advisor, seniors real estate specialist, nationally syndicated podcaster and speaker, the advocate you can trust, Mr. Ted Gottlieb.
The topic of older adult driving is such an important issue that we've dedicated a second podcast to it. This podcast summarizes what to look out for, touches on how to verify our suspicions, how to have the driving talk with our loved one, and how to work towards a smooth transition, getting them into the passenger seat. In the hot seat is Erin Dwyer. In addition to being a friend of mine, Erin is a certified senior advisor who spends the bulk of her time helping folks find their new home in a senior living community. And she's a certified Beyond Driving with Dignity professional. Erin, thanks for sharing your expertise with us today. First question, what are the signs that someone may need to retire from driving?
Well, there are a lot to be observant of. If you notice that your senior loved one has new dents or scratches in their car, even on the garage, and especially if they can't explain where they came from, that's a huge red flag. If you notice that they're getting lost, especially in familiar places, like just driving to the store and back, being honked at, having lots of close calls, near misses, those are all really big signs. And when you're driving with them, if you notice that they are confusing the gas and the brake, that they're not signaling, that they're not following traffic signs, that kind of thing, that is definitely very concerning. And that's where you should probably have their driving looked at.
Got it. So how can the adult children or spouse approach this subject with their aging loved one?
Yes, it's a very delicate subject. You definitely want to have this conversation in person if you can. And it might have to be small conversations over a period of time. But it's important to do it with I statements. I am worried about your driving, and then present the facts. What you've seen, maybe they have traffic tickets, bringing those things up instead of your driving worries me, saying, I'm concerned for your safety, and talking about it like that. Making yourself the bad guy, you're the one with the problem, and taking the heat off the senior, and just being respectful and not being very pushy about it, but also, just sticking to the facts at hand and what you're observing, and that safety is your number one priority.
Right, and it's difficult as a child taking on the parent role, and that's, I've seen it occur, and it's not really easy to do. And one of the conversations that a friend of mine had with his father was, Dad, I'm concerned about your driving. And Dad says, well, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. And he said, well, Dad, when did you take the keys away from your father? And he said, well, when he was about 80 years old. I said, well, how old are you today? And he goes, well, I'm 92. I said, well, you've gotten 12 more years than your dad did. So congratulations. But I'm really, really concerned about you. So how does the Beyond Driving with Dignity program through Keeping Us Safe work?
Basically, we have two avenues. So if the adult child or spouse would like to handle this topic on their own, we have so many resources for them, including a workbook. So it kind of guides them through how to have the talk, what are some basic guidelines, and then some questions to ask the senior to find out how they feel about their own driving. If they try that and they're not successful, or if they just don't want to touch the topic at all, then they can call a Beyond Driving with Dignity professional, such as myself, who will come in and sit in the senior's home. So it's a familiar environment. It's not a medical situation. It's not a simulator. We actually get in the seniors their own car that they're familiar with. We do some cognitive testing. We do a learning conversation to just find out how they feel about driving. Are they anxious, or do they have no clue and they're just fine going out in the rain and the snow and nothing bothers them? And then we get in the car with them and examine their driving, look at the range of motion. So we're looking at driving fitness physically, mentally, and then how others interact with them on the road.
Right. I had a conversation with my mom the other day, and she said, well, Dad and I are thinking about buying a new car. And I said, seriously? Because they have two cars. And I said, how many miles does your car have on it? And she said, it's a 10-year-old or 12-year-old car, but it's only got, I think, 20,000 miles on it. So I said, why are you thinking about that? And she said, well, we want something that has more bells and whistles, backup camera, that type of thing. What are your thoughts on the newer cars and technology in general with older adults? And I ask because I have a family member who has a newer vehicle with all sorts of bells and whistles, and it's overwhelming to the point where my family member either starts to ignore them or chooses to have them turned off. So I think it can be overwhelming. What are your thoughts?
No, I agree. Definitely. Some of those new top models have way too many things, and it's too much for me even. But just adding a backup camera can be really effective, especially if they don't have range of motion to turn their head completely around to back up. And also being able to detect small objects, children, dogs. I think the backup camera is very important. But all the other things, the Bluetooth and all of that, they probably shouldn't even, be worried about that or trying to have a phone call that takes away from their attention. So I think if we could just limit it to like maybe the backup camera and making sure the car fits them. So, you wouldn't want a 5'1" woman driving a big Lincoln Town car. The car is too big. She can't navigate around it. So looking at the fit of the car is more important than all the bells and whistles. But I do believe the backup camera is important, and also always having a cell phone, charged and with you, not using it, but having it there in case.
Right. I assume that those third party backup cameras can also be added to the vehicle instead of buying a new car. So assuming that it's got side airbags and all the other safety devices in it, that might be the key. I mean, I understand how the front bumpers now have sensors in them and all of that, but boy, that can just be overwhelming.
It can be, yeah. It's distracting too.
How important is memory to an older driver's safety?
It's very important. The stories that we hear of, well, I was just going to the store. It's 5 miles away, and I'll be right home. And then they get disoriented. They forget where they're going, and they end up going on a wrong exit, and they're 2 hours away from home and run out of gas. So memory is part of the executive functioning. So it's part of being able to plan and attend and make rational decisions. So if a senior is in a situation where they get lost, that's all they're going to be thinking about is, oh my gosh, I'm fearful, I'm anxious, I'm lost. And they're going to not attune to the environment around them. They may not pay attention to other cars. They may not, be able to problem solve effectively. And they just get overwhelmed with the fact that they are, have gotten lost. And a scary statistic is in a 2015 study, within 5 years of a dementia diagnosis, 50% of those people will be involved in a motor vehicle accident. So that's kind of scary, but it is. It's very important. They often confuse the gas and the brake, and that's where you see those stories of somebody was parked and they hit the gas instead of trying to reverse, and they go through a window of a store. Those kinds of things. So that's why it's important to, just because you're diagnosed with dementia, that doesn't mean you immediately have to stop driving, especially in the first couple years. But that's where it's important for the family to get a baseline and to see, okay, this is mom's driving today and she's doing pretty well. I'm going to keep checking up. And as soon as there's a decline, that's when they need to think about alternatives or maybe call in a professional.
Got it. Let's go back to the Beyond Driving with Dignity program for a sec. That when you go into the vehicle with them, how long of a session is that? And then also just give me a feel for what it costs to go through that, because we always want to know what the cost is.
The whole session usually takes 2.5 to 3 hours. We're very thorough. Most of what we do is actually at the kitchen table, finding out what medications are they on. Are there any that are making them drowsy? Are they taking them correctly? Are they feeling effects? Is it a new medication and they don't know how it's interacting with them? So we really sit down and take the time to find out how they feel about their driving. The actual session in the car can be anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes. Again, it just depends. If you have some near misses, then it'll be shorter. If we see some dangerous behavior, then they've given us permission to, pull over and let the driving professional drive the car home. So again, it just depends on how well the senior does as well. But usually it's 2.5 to 3 hours. And it's a flat fee of $350, and we come to them. So I'm willing to drive about 1.5 to 2 hours away to go visit. And we also do one follow-up. So if the senior passes on that day, we know a lot can happen, especially with diagnosis of dementia. I will come out at least one more time free of charge to when the family has concerns and sees some decline.
Well, and any of your findings are kept personal, does not report it to
Correct.
the state or anything along.
I don't report it to the state. It only goes to the family and any referring doctor, but the family always gives permission. There's ways we can work around it. If the senior is unsafe and doesn't pass and they're resistant, there's some things we can do. We can involve the doctor and things, but I don't go to the state and report those findings. They're for the medical professional and for the family only.
Got it. You know, I have a family member who lives in the state at an age, I guess, 90, received a new driver's license, and I think it was good for 5 or 6 years.
Wow.
Boggles my mind.
Wow.
I would think that at a certain age, you should be going on an annual basis just to check and make sure that you still have the skills. But to give somebody at that age such a long driver's license expiration date just boggles my mind. But I'll get off my soapbox on that one. What can an older adult driver do to continue to drive safely? What are some of the tips that you might be able to provide them?
The first thing I talk about is, do we have a cell phone? Do we know how to work it? It doesn't have to have all the bells and whistles. It doesn't have to be a smartphone, but do you have a flip phone even? Because some of the questions I ask are problem solving. If you were in an accident and the other person was injured, what would you do? And they always say, I would call 911. And I'd say, well, with what phone? And they'd be like, oh, yeah, I don't have a phone, or I never bring it with me, or it's never charged. So that makes them think, oh, wow, yeah, I can't complete the problem solving dilemma because I don't have the tools. So I would say, having that phone charged and with them in the car, not using it, but have it there in case they get lost or, need to reach out. That's definitely number one. Getting your vision checked, I would say every 2 to 3 years, every year, and then their hearing every 2 to 3 years. Vision changes, we have to look at cataracts, macular degeneration. A lot of times they just can't see well enough to see the signs, and then therefore can't react appropriately to that. Exercising. If you maintain your physical fitness, you will have the ability to rotate your neck, and you won't have that stiffness. You'll be able to get in and out of the car, and use the brake and the gas appropriately. So exercise is very important to keep the body and the mind fresh. But a lot of times it's just a matter of just tweaking when we're driving, trying to avoid rush hour. Let's avoid when there's bad weather. I mean, I don't like to drive in the snow and ice, so they definitely shouldn't be driving in the snow and ice. Just staying within a couple miles of home. Let's not take long road trips. Those are tiring for the best of us. Just making those little tweaks. And again, looking at the car and the fitness of the car. Are there too many bells and whistles? Is it too big of a car? Making sure that they're comfortable, in what they're driving every day.
Those are excellent tips. And I think the key is being realistic about what your capabilities are. I know that I don't drive as well at night as I used to, so I don't drive as much at night. And I'm almost 60. So add another 20, 30 years to that. I can't think it gets much better.
Right.
So just slow down. If you're not comfortable, find a ride. There's plenty of third parties out there who would love to drive you around. I've got a child who's at college, and when we take Uber or Lyft, I feel like I'm a royal. Okay, I get picked up. I can just pay them, and I don't have to worry about parking or anything else. I still have my independence. I actually have more independence, and I can relax a little bit more. I understand the money is an issue at times, but if you can afford to do it, you might consider that as a good alternative to getting behind the wheel and jeopardizing yourself and possibly somebody else.
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Erin. Any other tips that you might have for us?
No, I was just going to say, piggyback on that. You don't want to be taking away their independence. You want to give them more independence. And we are finding that seniors tend to taper their driving a little bit anyway. Like you said, they stop nighttime driving. Oh, it looks like rain. I'm not going to go out. So they're already making those changes and not socializing as much. So if they can have an Uber or a Lyft, or maybe a friend taking them to church, there's so many different programs, and they can drop them off at the door. So it doesn't matter if it's nighttime. It doesn't matter if it's raining a little bit. They don't have to worry about that, and they can be taken to their door and back home again. So that's we always leave them with alternatives. That's for sure, because we want them to be as independent or even more independent than they were before.
Erin, if somebody wants to get in touch with you to inquire more about your services, your expertise, how do they best do that?
Well, they can even give me a call at 314-451-2255, or they can always email me, Erin@seniorcareauthority.com.
That's wonderful. Erin at seniorcareauthority.com. You have a website as well?
Yes, seniorcare-stlouis.com.
Wonderful. And there's senior care franchises throughout the country as well.
Yes.
If somebody else needs, you can just reach out to you and
Absolutely.
you can connect them.
Love to.
All right, sounds great. Well, thanks again for listening to this Senior Learning Institute educational moment. At the Senior Learning Institute, we strive to provide the straightforward and unbiased information you need to make smart decisions the first time. We connect older adults and their advocates to the resources they need, from aging in place to selling the home in any condition, estate and financial planning, care providers, estate sales, clean out services, you name it, anywhere in the U.S. we can help, and we will handle it personally for you. For more information, please visit us at theseniorlearninginstitute.com. Please also check out freerealestateagentfinder.com. This is where I connect home sellers all over the country to experienced real estate agents. This, my friends, is one of the ways I keep the lights on, so just reach out to me at freeaf.com or call me at 314-690-9922. Until next time, I'm Ted Gottlieb, Certified Senior Advisor, Seniors Real Estate Specialist, and founder of the Senior Learning Institute.